Hello and welcome to CNBC TV18. The Indian auto industry, which registered a decline of 18% in FY20, has been severely hit due to the lockdown and the COVID-19 pandemic. As the auto industry seeks relief measures from the government, Rajiv Bajaj, MD of Bajaj Auto, has called the lockdown arbitrary and described it as a solution looking for a problem. Speaking to CNBC TV18, he said that the industry has already lost a significant number of jobs. Watch this exclusive interview where I began by asking him if the lockdown is a solution or not.
The lockdown is a solution looking for a problem, in the sense that on the one hand, as far as the health or the medical problem or crisis is concerned, we know very well that the lockdown is not going to be the long-term answer. There is all this talk about flattening the curve in the short term that I do not fully subscribe to, because my question is, what curve is there that needs to be flattened? All evidence globally suggests that the young and healthy do not need to be flattened. They need to go back to work. It is only the old and vulnerable that need to be secured. And that is what we should have been doing in a selective way, rather than implementing this sweeping, general, what I prefer to call arbitrary lockdown that has locked up everyone in a country where the average age is 28 and there is no social security worth its name.
Right.
When people have no jobs and no salary. So I don't think the lockdown is an answer to the medical crisis at hand, and it is certainly not an answer to the economic or the commercial crisis that we have. With every extension of the lockdown, it's making things more and more difficult.
Right. But Mr. Bajaj, what will be the impact on the auto industry in the month of April going forward? And Bajaj Auto has decided to review salaries of employees. Many other OEMs are also thinking about certain measures as well. Do you feel that it will be difficult to pay contractual laborers after April if this lockdown goes on in this manner?
Well, every company situation is different, Parikshit. First of all, in our case, fortunately, almost half of what we make is exported. So even if we were permitted to simply start shipping goods, and if the ports were functional, half our problem would be solved. But as of now, we really don't see that happening, although there are signs that this will start soon. As far as domestic demand is concerned, we have to first be allowed to open up dealerships before we can get a sense of, whether the demand is going to come rushing in or otherwise. As of now, to the best of my knowledge, there are really no dealerships that are open. So again, that is a problem. Even in the green zones, the situation is so arbitrary and erratic that dealers are afraid to open up because they just don't know what they might face at the hands of the police or the other authorities. So there's just complete chaos. Therefore, from the demand point of view, it's very hard to hazard a guess. From a cost point of view, yes, we've already made this announcement that post 15th April, we would have to review this matter. We continue to say that we do not see the need to go as far as putting in job cuts, effecting any job cuts, but definitely we have to review salaries, and fortunately in our case our people have come forward with suggestions for a voluntary wage cut, and we are actively reviewing that, and we will come to a decision shortly.
Right. Talking about the exit strategy, the government is trying to work out an exit strategy post the 3rd of May. How do you think the auto industry should be allowed to function going forward?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say this. I don't think the government is reviewing any such exit strategy. The obvious exit strategy, and that is what would help the auto industry and every other industry, would be, in the green zone especially, and to an extent in the amber zones or yellow zones as they call them, to allow practically everybody to go back to work, except the very elderly and the immunocompromised. And on the other hand, as far as the people who are under 60 years of age, which is basically the working population, is concerned, I think even in the so-called red zone, they should largely be allowed to get moving and get working. Because ultimately, till there is a vaccine, which is probably 2 years away, Herd immunity is the only answer to this problem.
Right.
And I think we need to secure only the elderly in that context. Unfortunately, what I see not only at the central government level, but also, at states like what I'm reading from of Delhi, for example, because, I'm Arvind Kejriwal is well known to me, so we've been in touch. What I'm seeing in my own state of Maharashtra is actually this, that governments know there is no way around this except herd immunity, but they don't want to stand up and say it. Nobody wants to stick their neck out. Nobody wants to take that chance. They are just playing safe and in the process making everything worse.
Mr. Bajaj?
So I think the problem was started by a virus, but it is now being propagated by government inaction.
Okay. Sir, just to speak about plants, every OEM is in touch with the government, state authorities to begin production. We believe you've received permission for your Rudrapur plant. The plant in Pune, of course, would not be functioning right now. Any clarity on when Bajaj Auto can resume production?
I can't tell you how opaque things are right now, Parikshit. For example, yes, we did receive permission for our plant in Pantnagar. However, it is still difficult for most people to find their way there. And, that is one plant from which we don't export anything. And as I said, unless dealerships open up and transportation eases up, what is the point in producing, even if we can produce? So production itself is an issue in terms of access to employees and to supplies. But even if that were to ease up, there are these other issues. Let me give an example. Yesterday I was speaking with Mr. Bala, my friend at Venkateshwara Hatchery here, being a processing unit. Venki's was given permission to start up day before, and yesterday they were arbitrarily shut down. I was also told, for example, that at one of the auto plants, major auto plants at Chakan, I don't want to name them, some employees found their way to work, fulfilling all the requirements, and within 30 minutes they were told to get out of their safety suits and go home, otherwise they will be locked up in the factory. So things are so arbitrary right now. I think in the government, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing right now. I'm going to say it as candidly as that.
Talking about cost-cutting measures, you're saying that you are reviewing salaries. You yourself have decided to give up your salary for the lockdown period. Going forward, do you think that job losses will become a reality in the auto industry when there is zero revenue? Job losses will be the immediate thing that will happen?
I think job losses have already happened. You have to only talk to our suppliers and dealers who employ, let's say, I would hazard about 90% of the people in terms of headcount across the supply chain. You would find that job losses are already significant and have already been affected. The OEM employees are a very small number of people relatively. Most people are employed ahead or behind the OEM. And job losses have already happened. So that is why I'm saying I need to say this as clearly as possible because, the government is just not acting. It is pretending as if there are no job losses, there are no salary cuts. Look at what is happening today in the US. Every household which has, let's say, 2 kids is getting over $3,000 a month from the government. Look at what's happening in Austria. I've been saying to you that Stefan Pierre has been telling me for the last 3 weeks that 85% of the wages of a KTM employee is being reimbursed by the government. Look at what's happening in Japan. Every citizen is getting or has been told that he will get $1,000 a month, which is effectively $4,000 for a family of 4. Look at Austria. Look at what is happening even in Indonesia, even in Kenya, where people are being told that those who earn less than a certain wage will not have to pay any taxes apparently. And what is happening over here? Nothing. We are just locking up and hoping that the virus will disappear one day.
Right. So SIAM has sought a relief package. ACMA, FADA, they've all sought a relief package from the government. Anything that you need, you feel that can be a lifeline for the auto industry that can come via government intervention?
My personal view, Parikshit, is that, I don't carry a begging bowl and I don't need anything from the government. I don't even need a employee wage compensation, as I mentioned, has been forthcoming in other countries. All I need is for the government to act logically and sensibly and not act out of insecurity and fear as they are doing. please start up first the front end, by which I mean the ports and for export and the dealerships. Work your way backwards. Start up and ease and smoothen transportation of all products and goods. Then work backwards, allow us to start our plants with all due precautions, obviously, because none of us are going to take a chance with any of us. As long as that happens, I think we'll be fine, because my own counterintuitive sense is that demand is going to come rushing back. At least it is going to be more surprising than most people would expect. I don't think we have a demand issue. We don't have a demand problem. We have a governance problem.
Yeah. You mean to say that there will be a greater demand for personal mobility for two-wheelers as a result of COVID-19? People will be very cautious about taking public transport?
I think there are several reasons why demand will come rushing back. First of all, 2 months of suppressed demand is going to come back. And secondly, yes, I do feel we will see some structural change like this. And this is, for example, again, a feedback that I have received about 2 weeks ago from KTM, that in Europe, so they are expecting almost 30-40% higher demand for powered two-wheelers, as they like to call their scooters and motorcycles, compared to what was the situation before this crisis. Because they are finding that more and more people either want to go away from public transport or shared transport and come to personal, affordable, of course, affordable individual personal transport, or there are people who do not wish to, fork out the money that you would need to buy a car and its associated costs, running costs. They would rather, stay with a modest two-wheeler for now. So, in fact, Stefan Pierer said to me, he doesn't want 11,000 KTMs as originally planned in April. He actually wants 16,000 KTM and Husqvarna put together. The problem is the plant is shut.
Right. Our final question, sir, would be for the long term. We, according to most estimates, we won't have a vaccine for coronavirus for at least the next 1 more year. Having said that, how do you think we can coexist? This is a developing story. The COVID-19 pandemic is going to change our lives for the long term. What are some of the changes that you foresee in the industry, in the economy, as a result of this, sir?
I personally think that these precautions we are all exercising currently, working from home and distancing, mask, hygiene, etc. These will continue for some time, but frankly, memory is short. These will be forgotten soon. I am personally not concerned at all. I strongly believe in our 3 advantages of immunity, higher temperature, and our young demography. I am quite certain that those who are young and robust will remain well. They may be asymptomatic or mildly affected at worst, which is all great for herd immunity. And I am personally, as you may well know, Parikshit, a great believer in homeopathy. We have distributed this preventively to lakhs of people. I am confident that they will all stay well. Unfortunately, again, this government is deaf, despite having its own Ayush ministry that is all for homeopathy, especially in a crisis like this. They don't want to move on it. For 4 weeks, we've been trying to convince them to add homeopathy, at least selectively run an experiment in some hospitals where you have patients to prove things, to have proof of concept and go forward with that till there is a vaccine. But, you have to ask them why they won't.
So that was Rajiv Bajaj in conversation with CNBC TV 18, saying that they've also slashed their marketing budget for this quarter to almost zero. They're also reviewing salaries and employee benefit packages as well to reduce expenditure by at least 400 crores per year. With that, we take a short break. But when we return, US plans to stop all immigration to the United States. We discuss the implications with Meera Shankar, former Indian ambassador to the United States, and also R. Chandrasekhar, former president of IT industry body NASSCOM. Don't go anywhere.